From FS Securities, we are an education and information firm on the Gold Coast in Queensland, Australia. And every morning I go through what happened overnight in the financial markets and try to forecast what we may see on our market and the overseas markets. And in my presentation I'll show you what is hot and what is not, and what you should hold and what you should fold. And by the way, if you like the presentation, why don't you review it, actually rate it and share it if you like, and give us some feedback. We would really appreciate that very much. Well, first of all, let's have a look and see what happened overnight. The Dow was down 135 points after 2 beautiful days of rising. You see here you got nearly 800 points up, got up to 26,870. Well, you see here down 0.5%. The S&P 500 was down 0.3%, again after 2 days of beautiful rises, and the same thing for the Nasdaq. The Nasdaq was down 0.7%. In Europe, the Stoxx 50 index, which comprises most major European markets, was down 0.4%. And you can see yesterday it had a beautiful day of 1.7% up. The FTSE 100 index was down 0.7%, the DAX 0.4% down, and in Japan the Nikkei index was down 0.8%, again another good day the day before. And in China, the Shanghai index, after rising nearly 17% over the last 2 weeks, managed to actually take a lot of that profit away, and 5%, nearly 5% down yesterday. And by the way, the government is being involved in buying and selling shares. On our market yesterday, we were down 42 points. That's 0.7%. We closed at 6,010. Remember, we are actually up to 6,053 the day before. And if you believe the futures, it was showing 14 points up at the start of trading, according to the futures. Gold dropped below 1,800, and silver $19.53. If you look at comparing the last 2 mornings, 1981 yesterday morning, 1953 this morning. This actually represents the changes between this morning and last night. Copper was 289, almost unchanged, and Brent oil almost 30 cents down, and West Texas crude oil was was down nearly 40 cents, or 30 cents, 30 cents. Soybeans continues to go higher. It looks like China is trying to appease Mr. Trump, buying more soybeans, and that's nearly 1% up. Remember, it's in China's interest that the trade deal between China and the US continue to go forward, and the American market is open to Chinese products. The Australian dollar 69.71 dropped below the 70, which we saw that yesterday morning. 61.2 euro cents, 55.5 British pence, and 106 New Zealand. And Bitcoin was slightly down yesterday, while overnight, 9,150, and again it dropped nearly $100 Australian to bring it down to the conversion of 13,150 Australian dollars. And iron ore was still trading at around $112.50 US per ton. Now going further, we can see that in here we've got looking at the charts here now. This is the Dow weekly and the Dow daily. You can see that the week is still green candle because of what we've seen the previous few days, even though with the drop we're still well above the finish last week. Where it's going to go from here, I think, that dotted line, which is the 21 week moving average, is going to be probably the support line. I don't expect the market to go below 25,600. And will it go higher? Well, obviously it may. Obviously we see here those big weekly changes. About 6 weeks ago the market shot up really high, got to above 27,000, and then the week after dropped down to 25,600. Well, we are somewhere in between, and we might even see that next week we might see the market hitting and trying to test those highs from previous weeks, or it might go down and test that resistance line, the 21 week resistance line. Looking at the daily chart, remember the candles continue to be above the 200-day moving average. It's very, very positive on the daily. Stochastic is bullish. Parabolic stop and reverse, the dotted points, the red dotted points, again below the candles, that's bullish. The 9-day, that's the orange dotted line, happens to be above the 21-day moving average, is positive. So the daily is very much a positive trend. The weekly a bit more confusing. We have the stochastic up, the parabolic stop reverse up. However, we might have few other indicators, long-term indicators, the moving averages, that may show that that can change. Well, for our market, the ASX 200, we see the stochastic on the weekly is up, parabolic stop and reverse up, and you can see the weekly, the 9-week moving average about to cross the 21-week moving average, is bullish. And the daily, again, most indicators happen to be bullish, and it's quite interesting that the 50-day moving average has crossed over the 100. The same thing here for the Dow. These are very long-term positive signs. So the market, for both the American market, the top 30, which of course a lot of exporters, and our market, is indicating that there is a very good prospect on the long term, that we may have seen the worst, which we've dropped nearly somewhere close to the 4,400, which was the lowest in many, many months, maybe years. And we may actually start to see that the market may be heading towards the high. Well, of course, there is the factor that if they find the vaccine, the market will shoot up. If Trump loses the election, I think the market will respond negatively. So there are a lot of factors that may change the situation. So be aware of that. Now, in terms of the mechanical system that we have designed over many, many years, these are the weekly that change. They only change once a week. We started the week with a neutral forecast, but the Nasdaq was very bullish. Then obviously during the week we started to change from neutral to bullish, and we continue to remain bullish for the traders. But for the investor, we're still waiting. Why? Because the investor look at the monthly and the weekly, and of course the indicators on the monthly and the weekly take a long time to change. So again, the Nasdaq remains bullish for the long-term investor. And for the investor, we look at the monthly and the weekly, as I mentioned. For the traders, conservative traders, we look at the weekly and the daily. And for the very aggressive, we look at the daily and the hourly. So we are bullish on silver, but neutral on gold. I think we may have hit the top for the time being. We were actually up above 1800 US per ounce. Now we are below it. So be aware of that. Crude oil, we turned from bearish to neutral to bullish. We started the week with bullish for the aggressive and the very aggressive traders. We turned bearish in the middle of the week. Wednesday morning, Thursday morning, yesterday morning we were neutral, and this morning we've gone back to bullish. Again, the indicators on the daily, and they change, and they change quite fast. Wheat bullish, coffee bearish, and if you want to trade any of these commodities, all you have to do is ask and talk to us. The American dollar, the basket is bearish versus the euro. The euro is very strong. You can see here the euro is very strong. And the Australian dollar is also strong, however neutral for the investor. Okay, now look at our market. This is actually the sectors. We are appearing to be very bullish for the All Ordinary, that's the top 300, and bullish for the aggressive and very aggressive trader for the ASX 200. Bearish for energy. Interesting, even though oil has gone up overnight. And the industrial, again, bearish. But we are bullish on Woolworths, Coles. They're buying a lot more toilet papers. Again, this will be on the website shortly. Looking at the weekly, what we've started the week with. Bullish for BHP, Telstra bullish, Rio slightly bullish, and Woodside Petroleum strongly bearish. That's how we started the week. Now looking at the daily, we continue to be bearish on Woodside Petroleum. We continue to be bullish on BHP, the price of iron ore well above $110 US per bushel. So that's very strong. Of all the banks, ANZ is bearish, however CBA is bullish. Remember, CBA was up 1.4% 2 days ago. It slightly dropped 9 cents yesterday, so we remain bullish. BHP, we were up 2.5% on Wednesday, and then yesterday, Thursday, we were down just 24 cents after going up 92 cents. So you can see why we are still bullish on BHP. Rio, very strongly bullish, up 3.6% 2 days ago, yesterday down 1.4. The indicators continue to be bullish. Remember, to be bullish we need to have 5 out of 8 indicators on for the investor, the monthly and the weekly, and for the conservative trader we need to have 5 out of 8 indicators on the weekly and the daily. Again, looking at Woodside Petroleum, down 2.1% on Wednesday, another 1.4% drop yesterday. So you can see why the changes. Okay, that's what we see this morning. Again, what we see this morning, how will it affect the market? Of course, tomorrow morning we'll see the changes. Okay, next we look at the volume. You can see here the volume yesterday was almost the same as the day before, slightly below 3.5 billion transactions. But 3 days ago we've had 45% of all transactions were actually on the declines and 16% on the advancing. Well, 3 days ago we've seen the volume slightly below 4 billion. You see the trend for the volume is actually down. So why is that so? Now yesterday we've seen Flight Centre going up 3.5%. Alumina was 2.4%. However, alumina was actually up the day before as well. Was up 2% the day before. and 2.4%. Shall we look at alumina today and see why that is so, and put a paper together on alumina? Qantas was up 1.7%, and Qantas yesterday, the day before, was up 4.3%, 2 days in a row. All Search was up 2 days in a row. Transurban was up 2 days in a row, and so is Cochlear. But the main thing here is aluminum, 2.4%. We're going to see the volume. If the volume is greater than average, we want to really trade it. We look at Qantas as well, and next slide will show you the changes, so be aware of that as well. Okay, we're looking at now the volume. We don't see Qantas, we don't see alumina here anywhere. So the volume, even though the price has increased, the volume hasn't exceeded the moving average, and therefore we're not really too excited about it. Origin Energy had a drop of nearly 2%, and the volume was just only slightly up. When we go down to the mid cap for the aggressive and very aggressive traders, Cooper Energy was up 6%, and the volume was 125%. The average daily volume over 50 days is 6.9 million transactions. Well, yesterday we've seen 15 million. Senex appeared several days, and we started to trade it. You can see that we have traded Senex. Yesterday was up nearly 10%, and the volume was nearly double, from 9.6 million transactions to 20.7 million transactions. That's why we're trading it. On the downside, Select Harvest slightly down. Decian is appearing day after day, another drop 6% and 55% increase in the volume. The sectors yesterday, the best sectors, the industrial and communication were the best sectors. All the other sectors were down. The worst sector was the information technology. And by the way, we are trading the information technology by trading a company, OpenPay, and you can see the sector in general was down. So I'm hoping that the information technology will go up, and hopefully that will push our trade up as well. Okay, now in terms of we need to give you our CFD position. Up and down, we're losing heaps of money. Our CFD position here for Western areas and up and down is bad. However, we tried to trade Senex yesterday, and it's slightly up, 3.5%. We are doing well with ANZ Bank. We're buying and selling, so we actually closed some position with profit yesterday. We are in the Australian ASX 200. We were losing $700, and now we're only losing $450, but nevertheless. So we're not doing very well with our trade in CFDs for the time being. Finally, the disclosure, our disclaimer. Obviously, everything we said today is only for general advice only. And before you take any action, please talk to us or your professional advisor. There is risk in the market, and you need to understand your own risk appetite before you trade, and be careful. Okay, so if you have any questions you need to ask, these are our details. you can write to me at this address, or you can actually call me on my mobile 0411259526, and if you're ringing from overseas, 61 is the country code. You don't need the 061 and the rest of the mobile number. Okay, well, happy trading, and I hope you make some money.